Thank you for joining us today on Earthfile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. Nigeria has already taken some steps to promote renewable energy development, such as setting a target of 30% renewable energy share by 2030, establishing a rural electrification agency to implement off-grid solutions, and launching several initiatives and policies to attract private sector investment and innovation. However, more efforts are needed to overcome the barriers and challenges that hinder the scaling up of renewable energy in the country. For instance, there is a shortage of skilled solar technicians, and many of these installers struggle to keep to the installation standards. This challenge is even more pronounced now that many are looking for alternatives to fuel-consuming generators due to subsidy removal. This skills gap is bedeviling the sector, not just here in Nigeria, but in Africa as a whole. Can we get it right? That's our focus today on the program. Just stay with us.
That we want to know what you're consuming for charge controllers, the size of cables, for also what else in panels. It falls under this. Without energy.
After training up to 500 people on solar installation and mini-grid designs, Olufemi Shobo knows too well the issues practitioners in the renewable energy sector in Nigeria face.
And one thing about this thing is that it gives us a session between our DC loads and also our AC.
While people are so eager to get started that they dive in headfirst, the research products calculate a cost estimate and start sketching panel layouts for their roof. What many don't know is that solar system is a lot more complex than it appears on the surface.
We observed that one reason why this does not work, or the solar does not work, is because sometimes we have the experience is one. So I'll talk about three things or reasons why solar does not work. First of all could be the design. We have poor designs, solar will definitely fail. Next is about the technicians. If we don't have skilled technicians, like what we have, they just use rule of thumb. People are not well trained on solar system, on inverter system. It could make solar system fail. And third reason is the components they use. Today we have in the market people manufacturing low substandard equipment, low energy cables, low power cables rather, and it's not what is meets to requirements. So we need the contribution of sun, we need the contribution of every person to focus on what is the right requirement for every design we take.
Poorly designed systems can lead to inefficiencies, reduced solar power output, and increased operational costs. These issues can undermine the financial viability of solar projects.
In this panel, we have some parameters, electrical parameters, close to about 5 of them, including the watts. The watt of this panel, for instance, is about 30. This is 30 watts. You could go to measure the VOC of this panel, and I tell you is a 21 point something or a 40 point something volts. That's what is written at the back of the nameplate, but that might be wrong. So when you're going to buy your panel, you need to carry out some tests called the VOC test for the panel. That includes you having your meter, your multimeter to carry out each probe, both positive and negative. So the VOC of this panel is reading, because we're in an enclosed environment, it reads 7.2 volts. To tell you the right voltage, and you can do that outside. When we measured this panel, for instance, when we measured this inside, we got close to about 7.1. That was because the radiance was low. It stated that for a panel to give you the right parameter, it should be about 3 factors: STT condition, temperature of 25 degrees, radiance of 1000 watts per meter square, and the air mass of 1.5. Measuring it inside, we got close to about 7.1 volts, but when we measured it outside, we got close to about 21, which aligns with what written behind the panel. Written behind the panel is 21.52, so you can get this panel or buy it because it's a good panel. This is a monocrystalline panel and aligns with what is written behind it.
But there are also many misconceptions. Solar power allows users to generate own energy, which means they won't pay for power from the utility or national grid. People assume this means they will be going off the grid. But experts say that's not accurate. Off-grid properties have no access to power lines, so they need another method to store energy. Off-grid systems need battery bank to function. More people require a grid-tied solar system, while the training here focuses on design and off-grid installations.
More advanced economy, they use grid-tied. we in this academy, we have been trained on both off-grid and grid-tied. One reason why we are not training our students on grid-tied is because our network is not yet solid enough. That's Nigeria network. So national grid yet is not solid enough. We want to have a system whereby we are producing and we are selling to the discos. We have trained a number of discos, we have had trainings here and there, but yet the grid is not strong enough to accept it. We had a training with some discos, including Abuja discos, the center representative with RMI, supporting here and there to ensure that it's possible. And we trained this representative on how we could use this DRS system, the decentralized energy resource system, to ensure that power is not just about the whole hydro system or coal system or grid system, but yet they can use an available space to generate solar and power community, with the help of off-takers, banks, for sponsors. So that is why the DR is coming.
Recently, Nigeria's national grid collapsed again, leaving millions of people and businesses struggling to keep their lights on. Another collapse on the 11th of December marks the 12th grid collapse in 2024, an unprecedented frequency of such incidents in the country. The power challenges confronting Nigeria have ultimately undermined its development and growth. Reliable electricity access is a major constraint for businesses in Nigeria, which it is said, when combined with a weakening currency, has led several leading companies to relocate their operations to neighboring countries with more reliable electricity supply and better macroeconomic conditions. Moreover, households and businesses often compensate for unstable power supply by adopting off-grid solutions such as standalone fossil fuel-powered generators and solar photovoltaic systems. Approximately 84% of urban households and 86% of companies use backup power supply systems in Nigeria, primarily based on fossil fuels. The total installed capacity of grid-based systems is around 13 gigawatts. However, today's available on-grid peak generation varies and hovers around 4.5 gigawatts. Nigeria's on-grid generation is dominated by natural gas power stations, which is around 86%, and large hydropower plants, which makes up 14%. However, unavailability of gas, machine breakdowns, seasonal water shortages, and limited grid capacity have severely limited the operational performance of these power plants. Also, distribution companies, also known as DISCOs, struggle with the high technical and commercial losses with power theft, inadequate metering, and poor revenue collection, exacerbating the sector's problems. Utility-enabled distributed energy resources is an emerging business model in Nigeria. Its proponents say it will help Nigeria meet its energy demands with the potential of adding 10 gigawatts of new generating capacity and avoiding 30 million tons of carbon dioxide by 2030.
Not only does the scheme look at the development of renewable generation infrastructure, it also looks at upgrading of the distribution infrastructure where required. It looks at metering of all these customers where required. So the issue of old and dilapidated infrastructure, especially as regards to distribution, is well taken care of by this scheme. Also, the reliability, the dependence, 100% dependence on the grid becomes a thing of the past, because with this you have enough energy security to ensure that when the grid is out, you can serve the customer for that duration. When the grid comes back on, you integrate back to the grid, and the customer is assured of 24 hours uninterrupted power supply.
Utility-enabled DER projects combine the strength of private sector developers and distribution companies, and it is said to be generating momentum in Nigeria.
If you think about how, the number of times the grid has collapsed this year, it gives you an idea of, what really happens when there's outage at the transmission level. The entire country at some point was in complete darkness, except for areas where you have embedded generation, or an interconnected mini grid where there is a developer and a distribution network company that came together to develop a project that supplies power to to the community. And so it helps to address all of those inefficiencies and supply gaps for both of the discos. And again, the regulator themselves have understood the importance of this, and because of this, they have also made it a target for distribution network companies to ensure that they include embedded generation projects. 10% of their allocation must come from embedded generation, and then 50% of that from renewable energy.
The Wuse Market Solar Power Mini-Grid project is the first utility-enabled distributed energy resources in Nigeria. The aim is to connect 5,000 market trader stores to solar power and displace over 3,000 fuel-powered generators.
So for underserved and unserved communities, it's basically an energy access program. So we look at communities within our network where it's too expensive to take the grid to them because of the distance they are from the nearest transmission station. For such communities, it's no-brainer. You just put in a generation facility that would help you provide reliable power, reduce your losses, ensure voltage stability. So that that is how we have selected those communities. But for areas that are on the grid, so we call them underserved, so you are not able to serve them adequately, so that you put them on band B, because you're not serving them, you're serving them 16 hours average of supply. So for such areas, the idea is to move their availability from average of 16 hours to 24 hours uninterrupted power supply, and then you can now give them proper service-based tariff, so you can upgrade them to band A and give them uninterrupted power supply. So for highbrow areas within the city that are currently experiencing low volume of supply, we are integrating distributed renewable energy solutions in those areas and upgrading their power supply to band A status.
While stakeholders have praised the initiative, the initial interest demonstrated by DISCOs and DER developers and several pilot projects currently underway, it has been shown that a series of market barriers hinder the full potentials of this innovative model of electricity distribution, including workforce development needs.
We are hopeful that even as an organization, we can expand this skill set and through our partnership and get more people on the team to do more of these projects. When you talk about skill set required for this, you're looking at maintenance crews, you're looking at installers, you're looking at field operations, you're looking at data analytics, because this has to do with a whole lot of big data, because you're looking at different customer segments, knowledge of smart distribution system, because with the renewable energy integration to the grid, a whole lot of automation is required. So you need smart distribution experience, you need automation skills, you need field engineers that will go there and carry out maintenance, operations and maintenance. You need rapid response teams that will ensure that the uptime of the network is very, very high. So quite a number of skills. We have the traditional skills, electrical engineering skills, which we currently have, but there is a need to take that a little further. So automation is coming in, understanding of renewable energy sources and how to integrate them to the grid is starting to become a very important skill to acquire. And I also want to use this opportunity to encourage young graduates out there that this is an opening industry and an opening field in the power sector, and they should try and pick up more of the skills because the future is bright in this regards.
On the 24th of August 2022, the federal government launched an energy transition plan and office, the first of its kind in Africa. to support innovations like the Utility-Enabled Distributed Energy Resources, or DERs. This plan aims to add 30 gigawatts of new electricity to the national electricity supply by 2030, with at least 30% coming from the renewable energy sources, and achieve net zero emissions by 2060. It is said that the DERs are one of the pillars of this just and equitable transition plan, which will require an annual budget of $10 billion through 2060. How to fund this has been a major challenge. It has been said that Africa needs between $1.3 trillion and $1.6 trillion in total climate financing every year to 2030 to meet its pressing needs.
Is sourcing electricity through the open access route.
At COP29, many advocated for a just and equitable energy transition for economic development. At this side event on Beyond Blending, Climate Finance for Clean Energy and Adaptation Businesses in Developing Countries, participants say Renewable still provides opportunity to curb waste and provide access to all.
What is the opportunity today for climate finance? It is to cover the upfront investment that will allow all the economies in the north, in the south, whatever is the level of development, to grow, to give access to electricity, access to energy. When you have 600 million citizens in Africa who have no access to electricity, it is not a centralized power plant that's going to help them. It is completely decentralized, renewable energy, solar, wind, biomass, geothermia, hydroelectricity, wind. This is going to provide what is needed for education, for health, for local development. It's a completely new paradigm.
The RMI's managing director in charge of Global South said unlocking the finance to clean energy in the Global South is key. She said the RMI's Catalytic Climate Capital Initiative is aimed at supporting utilities, helping developers complete progress projects, securing commercial financing, while building their capacity to scale this work independently in the future.
Keep talking about the $2.4 trillion climate finance gap for the Global South. But it's important that we translate that big high-level number into actual projects that will absorb that financing. Right now, when we look across the Global South, we do not have a good pipeline of investable opportunities. Where are the projects that will absorb this capital? And so the Catalytic Climate Capital looks at one of our programs and products, looks at ways that we can start to build out that pipeline. So we look at working with local developers, the developer community. These are the men and women who are building out solar and battery systems. We look at bringing in capital, both concessional grant funding capital, but also private sector capital, to work to fund both the developers and the projects that they're building out. And then we look at capacity development, both financial capacity and technical capacity. How do we build that within the developer ecosystem so that we have more companies that are doing this? And so that's sort of the bedrock of the Catalytic Climate Capital Program within Sub-Saharan Africa. And we look at project preparation, working with the developers, helping to fund some of that early stage work. And that is the hard work that often takes a year, right, before you get a project that a bank or a private equity fund will be interested in. It is the planning, it's the techno-economic studies, it is the interconnection agreements, it is the business model development with the utility, if you're working with a utility. And so all of that needs to be funded, and the private sector isn't willing to provide that funding, and so we do that. By doing that, we help to build out a pipeline. And we've been doing that now in Nigeria for about 5 years. We currently have a pipeline of about 500 megawatts across the country. All of these projects are distributed renewable generation projects, and we hope to 5 times that in the next couple of years.
In 2023, COP28 set a goal of tripling renewable energy by 2030, while transitioning away from fossil fuels. Africa, with 60% of the world's best solar resources, holds the key to this transition. It has been said that Africa can achieve the vision of green industrialization and see the creation of millions of green jobs.
No, I think jobs and livelihoods are an important part of why we do what we do. Energy in and of itself is not the goal. It's energy for development, energy for growth, energy for jobs and livelihoods. And so it's an integral part of our program in Africa. We have the Energy Transition Academy, which is set up to build the workforce of the future. We work to embed, we had a fellowship program where we work to embed fellows in utilities. We have training programs that can help to build out the workforce and make sure that we have the skills that is needed to prepare us for the future. And we think the future will be green and decarbonized. And we need to make sure that the skill sets and the training for that future is aligned with the needs of the market. So that's what we're focused on doing.
The team here at the Lagos Energy Academy and their partners are reimagining how to bridge this gap and give hope to many. They believe the experiential learning component has huge potential to transform lives through reliable energy access, where the grid may falter.
The Lagos Energy Academy was created in November 2013 with the sole aim of bridging skill set gap that was observed is lacking in the industry. What do I mean by skill set gaps? Areas of renewables, PV installation, inverter installation, metering, operation and maintenance skills, cable jointing, etc. Those skills are gradually being eroded, and they are core to the operation and the high service delivery of any electricity market. So hence why the Lagos State Energy Academy was created. It's purely to bridge the gap of training, training in terms of the resource, in terms of the curriculum upscaling to the latest technology, in terms of equipment that will be donated. Those are the areas we are looking at.
Apart from the required finance, RMI's report on Green Jobs Promise says unfulfilled promises of prosperity have left many people skeptical about clean energy job claims. A skepticism that is commonly accompanied by the belief that the future holds less opportunity than the past.
There's also the mismatch in job location and the quality of the job. And these gaps, usually between where you have fossil fuel jobs, even in Nigeria, that are lost, and where the clean energy jobs are going to be created. So in some instances. So I think, as I mentioned earlier on, as a country, there's a lot of advances. So in order to be able to sort of have a mindset shift or framing this green jobs discussion, we need to go beyond simple numbers and, look at, the opportunities, the potential transformations and things like that. So for Nigeria, as I've said earlier, the target for the amount of jobs that needs to be created is actually, a realistic target. However, this has to be backed up by significant investment. Based on energy transition targets, you're looking at $1.9 trillion. So, and if unless you're able to attract the investment, it's difficult to meet those high numbers. But I think we're getting there, and with the partnerships and what different organizations are doing, we can be able to demystify, that job creation potential.
The skill gap is enormous, we have been told. It affects not just the supply side of green infrastructure, but the demand side as well in industries that will make use of green technologies. But being able to train willing young people in both the rural and urban areas will help us solve the skills gap challenge and create jobs to many. However, government and the private sector need to work together to create the right environment for the industry to thrive. That's our show for the week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.